Can you imagine? A supercarrier built at a cost of $13 billion, where what ultimately drove thousands of sailors to the brink wasn't enemy missiles, but the filth spilling from their own toilets. On February the 26th, 2026, representatives from the United States and Iran sat at the negotiating table in Geneva, the eyes of the world fixed upon them. According to Washington's original script, the protagonists of this drama weren't just the diplomats, but also the USS Ford aircraft carrier on standby in the Mediterranean. This 100,000-ton behemoth, equipped with cutting-edge electromagnetic catapults and F-35C stealth fighters, was supposed to be America's trump card, its very presence meant to tell Iran, "Don't make a move. I'm watching you right at your doorstep." Reality, however, proved far more absurd than any script. This war machine, hyped to the skies by the Pentagon, never even reached the Persian Gulf. Instead, it dropped anchor in Greece's Sauda Bay harbor. The reason for the anchor drop is laughable: not a nuclear leak, not a missile strike, but a toilet malfunction. A total of 650 toilets went on strike. This single incident left the US Navy utterly humiliated before the world. We need to take a good look at just how chaotic things have become aboard the USS Ford. The news couldn't be contained for long, and even America's own media outlet, the Wall Street Journal, stepped forward with the scoop. Over 4,600 crew members were left staring at the few toilets still barely functioning, queuing for a bathroom break with waits starting at 45 minutes. What does that mean? It means you'd finish drinking a full pitcher of water, only to need another pitcher by the time your turn came. Sailors on night watch or combat readiness duty had to plan their bathroom breaks like they were preparing for battle. Even more disgusting was the sewage backing up in the pipes, filling the entire carrier's compartments with an overpowering stench that made covering your nose futile. The whole place smelled like a giant septic tank. In such conditions, expecting them to operate electromagnetic catapults or maintain F-35s, whether they were even mentally coherent, was questionable. This problem hasn't just sprung up overnight. As early as March last year, the ship's engineering department sent out distress emails reporting 205 toilet malfunctions over a 4-day period. The technicians responsible for fixing them had to work 19-hour days just to barely keep things functioning. Back then, it was a ticking time bomb, yet no one addressed it. Now deployed to the Middle East for this botched mission, the systems have been teetering on the brink of collapse throughout the journey. Since 2023, there have been 42 requests for external repairs alone, 32 of them just last year. This time, it truly couldn't hold out, suffering a complete breakdown. Yet Navy Fleet Command spokesperson David Carter stubbornly insisted the issue hasn't impacted combat readiness. Listen to that, excrement flooding the decks, and he tells me it doesn't affect combat readiness. That's just prioritizing appearances over functionality. Why can't such an advanced carrier even handle sewage disposal? There's something fishy here. Nimitz-class carriers used the old-school gravity-fed sewage system for decades. Clunky but reliable. Never heard of an entire fleet being crippled by it. But with the Ford, they had to innovate and install this so-called distributed vacuum sewage system, supposedly to optimize space and make sailors more comfortable. The result: this system is incredibly expensive and finicky, reportedly designed with a multiple toilets per pump setup, where several toilets share a single vacuum unit, and the entire ship uses identical parts from the same supplier batch. That's like putting all your eggs in one fragile basket. If just one component fails, the vacuum network spreads like a contagion throughout the ship. Insert anything foreign into the system, and the pipes, already criticized by the Government Accountability Office for being too narrow, immediately clog solid. Each unclogging requires specialized acidic chemicals costing $400,000. What else is this but burning money? This isn't merely a technical issue, it's a pitfall dug by military contractors. The more fragile the equipment, the more maintenance contracts they secure, and the more money flows freely. As for how the soldiers survive aboard the ship, that's simply not within their scope of concern. Now let's talk about those thousands of sailors who've been pushed to the brink. They're the ones suffering the most in this farce. This ship left its home port last June, and by the end of February this year, it had been drifting at sea for a full 8 months. In peacetime, the normal deployment cycle for an aircraft carrier is just 6 months. These guys should have been home hugging their kids and seeing their wives long ago. But what happened? With a wave of the hand from Pentagon politicians, they were ordered to the Caribbean when trouble arose there, then to the Middle East when Iran became a target. This single stroke extended their deployment to 11 months, poised to shatter the US Navy's record for consecutive deployment duration. These sailors aren't machines, they're human beings. Some missed their loved ones' funerals while at sea, others watched their children take their first steps across the Atlantic, reduced to tears over a phone screen. Long periods without contact left wives on the brink of despair. They're already physically and mentally drained, with morale teetering on the edge of collapse. Now even their most basic bodily freedom is taken away. Their living conditions have turned into a pile of sheet, and you expect them to maintain morale. Many young sailors are already plotting. Once they get back from this deployment, they're quitting dead set, enlisting out immediately. A military force where morale crumbles before the first shot is fired. How is that supposed to work? Now, let's zoom back to today's negotiation scene. This is where things get truly interesting. The US had planned to conduct talks in Geneva while simultaneously sending the USS Ford, armed with F-35Cs, to prowl menacingly in the Persian Gulf. This is their signature tactic, maximum pressure. The idea was to make Iranians hear the roar of American warplanes in their ears while listening to diplomats, instilling fear in their hearts. The result: the Ford is stranded in Greece fixing its toilets, flushing all that swagger down the drain. The Iranians across the table see right through it. If you can't even clean up your own mess, what do you have to scare me with? This play has flopped spectacularly. The so-called military deterrence has instantly become an international laughingstock. At its core, this isn't merely about a clogged toilet. It's part of a long line of failures for the Ford. Since its commissioning in 2017, its electromagnetic catapults have frequently jammed, its ammunition elevators have been perpetually on strike, and now even the F-35Cs can't operate properly on it. Congressional leaders have long questioned its combat readiness. Now, even its most basic life support systems have collapsed. This ship resembles a dandyish spendthrift, dressed in gold and silver, yet with holes in his underwear. The Ford's sewage system is now completely blocked, a metaphor for the clogged bowels of American global hegemony. That stagnant pipeline is filled with the stench of military-industrial greed, the messes politicians have lit fires everywhere, and the blood and tears of rank-and-file soldiers. No empire, no matter how vast, can withstand decay from within. When you can't even clean up the filth beneath your own deck, you'd better stop meddling in the world's affairs.